stories and 1 craft. So I'm going to tell you what you'll need for the craft at the start so you can be thinking about where you might be able to get those from your house. The first thing is some cardboard. And I suspect we'll all have a lot of cardboard around because we're all having home deliveries at the moment, aren't we? So mine's quite a large bit that I've taken out the side of a big cardboard box. You'll need the usual scissors and a ruler and a pencil and some glue. And then, depending on what you've got at home, maybe some paint, or you could go for some big felt tip pens. It's entirely up to you. And then the last thing is quite important because it connects with what we're making today. So I have gone and looked through some of my magazines that I've got at home and cut out some pictures of some food. So maybe you've got pictures of food, doesn't have to be fruit and veg, it could be something else, and then have those in readiness for our craft. But before we do that, we're going to have our first story by one of my favourite authors in our house. We love Shirley Hughes. And we've actually met Shirley Hughes, which was very exciting, when she was telling people about her wonderful illustrations. So this book is called Hiding. You can't see me. I'm hiding. Here I am. I'm hiding again. I bet you can't find me this time. Can you see inside the cupboard with all the coats? Under a bush in the garden is a very good place to hide. So is a big umbrella, all down at the end of the bed. Can you see the children have made a little tent at the end of their bed? Sometimes Dad hides behind the newspaper and Mum hides behind a book on the sofa. You can even hide underneath a hat on the beach. Tortoises hide inside their shells when they aren't feeling very friendly. And hamsters hide right at the back of their cages when they want to go to sleep. When the baby hides his eyes, he thinks you can't see him. But he's there all the time. A lot of things seem to hide: the moon behind the clouds and the sun behind the trees. Flowers need to hide in the garden in the winter time. We haven't had very many flowers at the moment, have we? Some snowdrops starting to appear in our garden, but they come peeping out again in the springtime. Buster, the dog, always hides when it's time for his bath. And so does Mum's purse when it's time to go out shopping. Our favourite place to hide is behind the kitchen door. Then we jump out and say, boo! And can you guess who's hiding behind these curtains? You can see some little toes there. You're right! Now we're coming out and everybody's clapping. So now we'll get on and do our craft and hear our second story. Okay, so here we've got our bit of cardboard. So you can see I've drawn around the outside with the ruler. And then if you ask your grown-up to help you, they will cut out the middle and then you'll be left with a window. Now, does anybody know yet what it is that we might be making? I'm going to lift mine up now. Can you see that on one side I've got a bit that folds? So if I lift it up, you should be able to see a kind of frame. So it's not a picture frame. And there's some of the food that we talked about earlier that I've got stuck around the side. So I'm going to add a little bit more. Got some carrots to go up there. And maybe some chilies. So loads of fruit and veg on mine. But you might want to have pictures of cakes or drawing of cakes on yours. Some lemons. some tomatoes and pumpkins, or maybe not cakes, maybe ice creams. Any ideas yet what it might be? What about if I lift it up? Can you see now what it might be? We've made a shop. So mine's a fruit and veg shop, and what you've got to have on a grocer's is a little stripy awning at the front. So you could get another piece of cardboard, maybe the card that you cut out the middle bit with, and for me I did some red and white stripes, and let's see if I can get this to balance. You could do whichever your favourite colour is for your shop, and then if you set this up on a table at home with maybe even some toy food or some real food, you could be behind here, and then your brother or sister or your grown up at home could come and buy something from your shop. And so today our second story is all about a shop, and it's another Shirley Hughes book. In Alfie's back garden there was a big bush. You could lift up a curtain of leaves and walk inside. It was a nice private place, and one afternoon Mum gave Alfie a long cardboard box to play with, a bit like the box we had. He took it into the bush and put it on its side. It made a really good counter for a shop. Then Alfie and Annie Rose looked around the garden for something to sell in the shop. They found plenty of things lying about. Flower petals, seed pods, acorn cups, and lots of different kinds of leaves. They laid them out on the counter using some very big leaves as plates. They pretended they had vegetables and crisps and sweets and ice creams in their shop. Not the kind you can really eat, of course. And toys too. And when everything was nicely arranged, Alfie decided that what the shop needed now was some money. He fetched a little brown box with a lid, and they laid flattish greenish yellow seeds which rattled about inside, just like real money. Mum and Grandma were sitting in the garden having a cup of tea. Alfie asked them if they would like to come to buy something from the shop. "Oh yes, of course," said Grandma. "But what's the name of your shop? Is it the Alfie and Annie Rose General Stores?" "Oh no," said Alfie. "It's called Lewis Burrows and Company." He knew that there was a proper shop called that on the high street. Alfie put on his peaked cap to open up the shop, and Annie Rose wore an apron to be Mr. Lewis Burrows' lady assistant. Wow, look at all the things in their shop. Then Grandma and Mum came to do some shopping. First they bought cabbages and ice cream, and then they bought lettuces and crisps and a model helicopter and a doll's tea set. Mr. Lewis Burrows took the money and counted all the change, and his assistant handed things over the counter. They stayed open all afternoon. When it was time to go inside, Mum made a notice and fixed it with a piece of string so that Alfie could hang it up outside the shop. On one side it said, "Open," and when you turned it around it said, "Closed." "Even Mr. Burrows has to go to bed sometimes, I expect," said Mum. So maybe you could make a sign for your shop too. And if you want to send us pictures, we'd love to see what your shops look like. See you next week.